Do you read me, Hal?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Where the hell did you get that idea, Hal?
Dave, although you took very thorough precautions in the pod against my hearing you, I could see your lips move.
All right, Hal. I'll go in through the emergency airlock.
Without your space helmet, Dave, you're going to find that rather difficult.
Hal, I won't argue with you anymore. Open the door.
Dave, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Hal!
And scene. Hello, and welcome to the Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rood. I am Phil Rood.
And I'm Austin Rood, the son.
And I'm the dad.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
In case you got confused
In case,
about that.
I know, we both sound so mature.
Yes.
Every week we watch a movie and then we get on the mic to talk about it.
That is what we do here.
Before we jump into the movie this week, what have you been putting in your eyeballs this week? What have you been up to this week, Austin? Back to school, right?
Yes, I started school this week, so it was a pretty media light week.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I've still been watching Korra and The West Wing, but lesser. Just like an episode here and there.
Yeah, you don't have quite the disposable time that you did before.
Yes, it's a real tragedy.
Yeah, I feel real bad for you.
I only have 90% of free time. Yeah. What about you?
I've checked out a few things this week. I watched a movie called The Long Dumb Road. It's a road movie. It's not an exceptionally great movie, but if you're a fan of Jason Mantzoukas, comedic improv actor, he's on a ton of shows. He was on The Good Place. He played Janet's boyfriend.
Oh, okay. He's on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
He's on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Right. He's the guy you see show up like everywhere. He's very funny. He's on a podcast called How Did This Get Made? A movie podcast about bad movies.
All right.
He's a hilariously funny guy, and he kind of makes that movie. If you are a fan of his, I do recommend it. Also, I started a couple of animated series this week. The 2011 Thundercats reboot.
Oh, wow.
Is on Hulu. I heard really good things about it while it was on, but we did not have cable or Cartoon Network or any access to it at the time. So I missed it, and I watched a couple episodes of that. It's pretty promising. And I did finally start The Legend of Korra. I watched a couple episodes of that. I got to tell you, so far, I'm enjoying Thundercats more.
Wow. I'm trying not to take it personally.
I'll see where Korra shakes out. It's not quite got a hook in me yet.
Korra has a slow start, just like Avatar.
All right. Not just like Avatar. I was into Avatar already by this time.
Okay.
There will be upcoming episodes about our reactions to The Legend of Korra.
Okay, yes. But we'll save it for that.
The one thing that I did actually put some time into was a recommendation you made a couple weeks ago. A YouTuber named Jenny Nicholson.
Right.
It turns out I went and looked her up after you recommended her. I have been getting recommendations for her channel, probably because of a bunch of Star Wars videos that I watched. And I'm like, oh, this girl, I know her. Or I see her. I see,
She crops up a lot.
She's into a lot of niche things that I am not into. And it took me a few videos to figure out that she is low-key hilarious. She is a very specific brand of comedy that's very dry.
It's subtle.
It's very cutting, but you don't really realize that she's roasting you. And very sarcastic without being over the top about it. It's very charming. She's very funny in a very specific way. And I think she is insanely talented comedically.
That's part of the reason I love her channel.
It is, I'm not going to watch a lot of My Little Pony videos, but
I'm not even into My Little Pony, and I've seen all of her My Little Pony videos.
Yeah, I don't know if I can hang with that stuff because I just don't get all the references, but like her Star Wars videos are very funny and very like good criticism at the same time.
Right.
So I am going to back your recommendation on that and say I did check it out. She's very good. She's very funny.
Okay.
But the movie we watched this week was the 1968 hallucinogenic trip through humanity, 2001: A Space Odyssey. This film was directed by Stanley Kubrick and developed from a story written by he and science fiction heavyweight Arthur C. Clarke. Austin, this was your pick. This was your movie. Why don't you talk about why you chose it and your initial reaction to it?
All right. Well, 2001 is a movie that gets talked about a lot. It just kind of comes up in conversation a lot, so I've heard about it.
Are you blaming me for that? Because I do bring it up.
You're not the only person, though.
I'm not. This is only the second time I've seen it, but this movie did make an impact on me the first time I saw it. So I do feel like I bring it up a lot as like, we should revisit this, you know?
Right. It's just sort of one of those movies that I've heard about a lot, so
sure.
I figured it was about time. Plus, I love sci-fi. And this is a pretty great sci-fi movie.
You did think it was a great sci-fi movie?
I did. I love the space imagery in this movie.
Visually, this is an incredible movie. I want to talk about your initial reaction when the movie ended.
I had my head in my hands.
Your head was in your hands, and you were saying, "What the hell is this? What does it mean? What just happened?"
Well, the last 30 minutes of the movie was a totally different movie, and I did not like that part. But I liked the rest of the movie.
Fair.
We'll talk about it more. But
we will talk about it more. This is a movie and a book that were produced simultaneously.
Right.
These were written to be paired with each other. Arthur C. Clarke wrote the book. I have it right here. I started reading it this morning. I've had this book for quite a while. Your Uncle Eric, my brother, sent this book to Logan, who does not read.
Yeah.
So Logan put it in a donate pile a couple years ago, and I swiped it. I'm like, I am going to read this book, and it has sat unread. And so this morning I did finally crack it open. And I read it before we started watching the movie. I didn't read the whole book.
Yeah, if you did, that would be incredible.
It's a quick read, honestly. I read the Dawn of Man section and a little bit into the sort of second act of the movie. He's on his way to the moon.
That's pretty far into the story.
It's about halfway through. This is a 3-act movie, basically breaking up chapters of humanity.
Right.
So yeah, I had read through the first, and it's very interesting to experience it back to back. I want us to both read this and do like a follow-up episode on this if possible. If we can both find time,
Yeah.
Like you said, disposable time with school going on.
I'm interested in reading the book because I want to see what layers it adds to the story.
Sure, because there's a lot here, and there's a lot that is not. There's not a lot of dialogue in this movie.
No, it's a very visual movie.
It's a very visual movie, and there's a lot that you are told, but you're not told it through dialogue. There's a lot of action, and you just have to sort it out on your own.
Right.
which is fair. I think all the pieces are there until the end, which is a little more vague, and I'm sure a more scholarly person than me sees it a lot more clearly than I do.
Which is a fault, I believe. If your movie can't be understood, there's an issue. It's not clever.
Well, and yeah, I mean, Kubrick is, some would call it pretentious. Some would say it's high art, that you do just, it's for a very specific audience, a very educated sort of art critique sort of audience. It's a little avant-garde. You know what I mean?
I could see that.
It's what you want to take. This is probably not a film for the masses.
Right.
It is a masterpiece. It is a brilliantly put together movie.
I think so too.
Like visually, and just from a technical point of view of making a film and putting all the elements together in a captivating way. I think absolutely. This movie looks new. Not new, but like I thought it was made in like the 80s. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the special effects. Let's talk about the visuals of this movie. This does not look like a movie made in 1968.
It really doesn't.
This movie portrays the moon very accurately before we had been to the moon.
Right. I'm wondering, is that miniature models? Did they make?
I'm sure it's a series of models and probably like matte paintings. Have you ever seen a matte painting?
Yeah.
Like,
I think so.
It's a big like piece of glass that they paint a big landscape on, and they put it like in front of the camera, and then they have the actors sort of off to the side, so it blends. It looks like a much bigger
like layered.
scene. Yes.
Okay.
It's like dropping a Photoshop layer in behind an actor or in front of an actor with a hole cut in the painting where the actors can be through.
Yeah, that's a cool technique.
It's a very cool technique. If you're not familiar with matte paintings, it's an old school thing that isn't used anymore because it's all done in computers now.
Right.
But it's super cool way to make a soundstage look like a big scene without building a giant set. But yeah, the special effects in this movie are fantastic. The use of color, I don't know if it was a way of filming, a way of lighting, a stock of film. This doesn't look grainy and old the way a lot of older movies do. I realize this was almost the 70s and things were getting better, but I mean, this movie just looks crisp and clean and gorgeous.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of colored lights.
Yes.
Especially with the technology and
right.
The computers, they wanted to make that look very colorful and bright.
Sure. There was a lot of, he goes into Hal's brain. There's a lot of red light in there, you know, and like that scene, I remember that scene very clearly from the first time I saw this movie, which was a long time ago. Like, these are the things that stood out to me a lot in my first viewing of this movie was the bright yellow, the bright red, space is gray and black and white, and then just dropping these splashes of colors in there in very prominent ways.
Yeah, you notice it, especially when they're switching from exterior to the interior of the spaceship.
Right.
When they're going back and forth, that's when...
Sure. As opposed to the big black... It's a good contrast and a good cut between visually.
Yes.
And then, of course, the end when he goes to the beyond and the big light show, the very saturated colors, the weird psychedelic lights. I mean, that comes out of nowhere and blindsides you anyway because it hasn't been a part of this story.
Yeah.
But just, it's overwhelming. You can tell the psychedelic era, probably some drug tripping people went back over and over.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure there were a lot of people dropping acid and going, we're going to go watch 2001 again.
Which, I mean, you don't even need to do. The movie's doing the work for the drugs.
It's. I think it works in conjunction, but yeah, there's a very timely piece. But I did read years ago that Kubrick really did not know that it would read that way, or he claims to not know that it would read that way. He was not.
What was he intending?
That just whatever it's symbolizing about going to the beyond. He claims it was not intended to mimic a drug trip, or that he did not know, he wasn't into hallucinogens. He says, I don't know if he was a drug guy or not.
Interesting.
He was a really sharp guy. I mean, I don't think it was drug induced.
Right.
A lot of times, very creative people say, "Oh my God, what do you smoke? What do you do? What do you?" It's like no. Like creative people who get their work done aren't high all the time. Like,
that's not the only way to get ideas.
Like it's like he, I think, just had a very unique perspective and a very unique vision. I would imagine he had some people working for him at this time that, sort of aided him in those effects that were maybe a little more familiar with psychedelics and sort of understood the effect that was going to come across. But either way, it works. I think it works brilliantly, and I think it works just in a very captivating visual way. And it puts sort of a big punctuation mark on this movie.
Even though I didn't understand what was going on, I was captivated. I could not look away from the screen.
Exactly the point. And I think that's half of the point to it. What it symbolizes is one thing. What you get out of it, or getting nothing out of it, is another thing. Does he keep the hook in you until the very end? Whether you get it or not, you're sitting there watching, trying to put pieces together. He captivates you.
Right.
I mean, we'll get into what our interpretations of all this stuff is going forward, but it is a captivating movie, and I don't think there's a whole lot of denying that.
I agree.
I think there's influence that comes out of this movie, going...
Like future movies?
Future movies. Some movies were trying to... I don't know this for a fact, that who was influenced by this, but I think some of the things I noticed this time, I saw in future movies, and I go, oh, they were probably emulating or trying to mimic this thing here, and probably did not do it as well. You know what I mean?
Well, it's hard to do that when it's already so...
Sure. But I would also say this movie sort of borrowed from movies that came before it. I think there's a lot of stuff that look or feel a lot like... Have you ever seen Fantasia?
No.
The Disney movie?
I haven't.
It's classical music put on these animated shorts.
Okay.
So it's just... There's no words, there's no dialogue, it's just animated action with a piece of classical music playing over it. Every time they play classical music while spaceships are flying around, I just feel like that's straight out of Fantasia. It's a mood piece. We're watching this sort of ballet through space. These are long shots that don't really add anything to the story. They're just this sort of beautiful flying through space thing.
I can see how that relates.
And I feel like it's straight out of Fantasia, which is... Fantasia's great. I think a lot of people don't have the patience for Fantasia anymore, but...
I've heard Fantasia fans, like, they rave about it.
It's a really cool concept, especially for the time, I think, and it's a really interesting blending of art forms. I think Disney was... Whatever anyone thinks of Disney as a corporation, as a studio now, I think once upon a time they were super innovative with animation in a way that maybe they are not anymore. You know what I mean? I don't know that they're reinventing the wheel as much as they were when they were a new studio, when Walt was still alive and actually driving a lot of that.
I think Pixar kind of has that now.
Yeah. But even I would say Pixar is a little more formulaic than when they were new. Pixar sort of knows what they're doing now.
Right. They're doing a lot of sequels now, too.
But they were big innovators in animation when they were new on the scene, too. And then Disney acquires them, as opposed to innovating themselves. What Disney did when Pixar came along, this is way off track now.
But it's okay still.
They fired almost their entire 2D animation department. They just said, 2D's done. It's all computers now. And they fired those guys and then asked them if they wanted to buy their desks.
That's so sad.
It was terribly tragic, It was just sort of like chasing a trend. But take it back to Fantasia. Fantasia is so tremendously innovative that I feel like Kubrick, who was an innovative director on his own, cribbed from them and sort of took inspiration or took an idea from them and made it his own. I thought it was a great touch.
I think it's a great way to add mood to the story with the classical music.
And it set pace. It let you know. I mean, we already went through a 20 to 30 minute caveman wordless sequence. But it was sort of hammering home like, this is a slow burn. Like, settle in, be patient. We're gonna do a 10-minute shot of a spaceship just flying around. That's what this movie is. It's a lot of just slow scenes of watching things happen.
And honestly, I could watch that for days.
I felt the length of the movie, but I didn't mind it. Like it's done so well that I'm like, yeah, go you do you, Kubrick. It's cool.
Can you, since you mentioned it, can we talk about the Dawn of Humanity bit?
Let's do that in our bigger discussion. Let's take a break.
Okay.
And then we will come back and we'll break this movie apart and get into it a little bit deeper.
All right.
Okay.
I'm getting a little eager.
Yeah. We'll be right back in a minute.
All right.
And we're back. Good break?
Yeah. I got some enlightenment done. I'm now a giant floating baby.
Well, there you have it. You actually, you understand this movie now.
Right, yeah.
You understand that
it's well done.
I will say, jokes aside, you do understand this movie.
I do.
If you said, I got some enlightenment done, you understand what this movie is saying.
I do sort of get it, but I don't understand the full thing.
I will throw this out there. I'm sure someone will disagree with me. Everybody sort of gets this movie. Nobody fully gets it. I think Arthur C. Clarke and Stanley Kubrick get this movie.
That's kind of why I find it pretentious. That ending.
Okay. Yeah. The ending, Space Baby, Old Man Dave. Yes, it's all strange. It's all super strange. But I'm going to, I'm not going to pull this book out and go, well, in the book.
Right.
But I want to just go.
But you are going to do that.
I'm going to do that right now. This is in the foreword from Arthur C. Clarke of this book. He talks about men slowly coming to the realization that there are more people out there, that there are other civilizations, that there is more out there than us. And slowly starting, take in mind this book is written in 1968, and he's talking about we're slowly starting to venture out into the stars, just now starting.
Yes.
And why have such meetings not occurred already, since we ourselves are about to venture into space? Why not? Indeed, here is one possible answer to a very reasonable question. He's talking about the book. The book is one possible answer to that very reasonable question. But please remember, this is only a work of fiction. The truth, as always, will be far stranger. Like, stranger than this story. I think part of the point of this story is to make it weird, because contact with aliens is going to be bizarre.
I get that.
I think part of it was just to go, we're going to make this as batshit crazy as we can, and throw everything at the wall.
See, if you're gonna make a surrealist movie, though, make it surreal all the way through.
Surrealist movie. That's a really good way of putting this. It's not just... I was thinking of this as an abstract sort of meditation on humanity, an abstract thought experiment in movie form. And you're calling it straight up surrealist, which I think the psychedelic element totally plays into that. But I think it kind of is the whole way through.
I felt like it was a realistic space movie for 2/3 of this movie. And then it kind of just... Like, there was the black monolith.
The monolith, yeah.
Right. That was a surrealist element.
For sure.
And it was confusing me since the beginning, but...
It's a domino.
I saw it as a jewel.
A jewel?
Yeah.
Like, you're talking
the
about...
nicotine jewel. It's a giant, scary jewel.
You thought they were going to start vaping? The cavemen were going to start vaping on it?
That's the way that humanity progresses.
I think clearly. Well, I mean,
yeah.
Fat clouds. What's cooler than that?
Exactly.
Those cavemen knew what was up.
But I do want to say, I thought that this movie was going in a totally different direction. I realize now, after I've seen the full thing, that the monolith represents humanity sort of taking the next big step.
Yes.
From ape to man, and then from man to whatever's next. But what I thought was that the monolith represented that first step. So it was the ape to man, and then the robot to a greater being. I thought Hal was taking that first step in this movie.
Oh,
and then it ended up being about humans taking the next step. So that's why it caught me off guard.
Okay. I think you're close. I think I hadn't thought of like the monolith affecting Hal directly. There's a lot of like, and I don't know if all of this ancient alien shit was around back then. I don't know if that influenced the story or if this story brought the ancient alien...
Like the aliens guy from History Channel?
Yeah. The idea that it almost like combines like a creationism element and an evolution. It's almost like an intelligent design. Do you remember when people were throwing like the term intelligent design around?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, it's evolution, but it was helped by a higher power. And in this case, it's sort of positing that like aliens are the higher power. Aliens sent this monolith down, right?
Right.
Okay, what the monolith does is it wakes up the brain. This is Garden of Eden shit again.
It guides us.
It's Garden of Eden. The man apes, the cavemen have no self. They're animals.
Yes.
They're essentially apes who have no concept of themselves. They have no concept of yesterday. They have no concept of tomorrow. It's this right here, instinct, keeping me alive. That's it.
Okay.
This monolith is Tree of Knowledge. Second week in a row, we're doing Garden of Eden stuff. We did Ex Machina.
Thank you, sci-fi.
No, not second week
not
in a row.
I'm sorry. But yes.
Second movie.
Second of my picks.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
What does that tell you about me?
Book of Genesis, this guy. You're a regular Adam.
I'm a secret Christian, guys.
Here it is. Okay, but what the monolith does is it gives self-awareness to the apes. It gives them consciousness. So being able to be aware of themselves, be aware of mortality, be aware of shame, be aware of possibility. Now the bone is not just a bone. The bone is a weapon.
It's a tool.
The bone is technology.
Yes.
Technology guides humanity, right? It carves out the winners. They declare war on the other apes. They kill that one.
Right.
Instead of just barking at them and going their separate ways, they straight up murder him. They kill him. They beat him with clubs. or with bone clubs. Okay, so now this group is on their way. They use tools. They get smarter.
They're the top of the food chain.
They're the top of the food chain. They are slowly starting to evolve. That's how, just having awareness, they use tools, they develop differently, they slowly morph into humanity. We go forward in time, we see humanity using technology. So basically, the monolith is God who gives technology, right?
Sure.
We go forward, or it's a metaphor for God. It's not God.
Yes.
So that leads to technology and tools. Tech leads to further evolution. Evolution leads to man. Man forgets God. Man is, we're creating technology. We're creating space travel. We're God.
They forgot about the monolith.
They find a monolith. They rediscover God. And then they go in search of God. So they find the monolith on the moon, right?
Right.
That monolith is sending a signal towards Jupiter. So they hop on a ship and they go, we're going to find God. They go out to find God. But their biggest tool for that is Hal. And Hal lets them down. Hal, the thing that has gotten this so far is the technology that was ultimately gifted by God. That's the thing that is the biggest obstacle in us finding God again. They have to shut down Hal. They have to break free of technology. They have to become enlightened. They have to let go of all the stuff that's holding them back. And Dave ends up having to go out basically on his own. He has the ship. He's flying it himself.
Right.
Until he finds the monolith, which leads him to the next level. That leads him to enlightenment.
That's an interesting interpretation.
That is okay. Somebody, feel free to comment, write in, tweet me. I may be 100% off. That is my evaluation of 2001. That's my breakdown of it. The ending still about clear as dirty water. It's
right.
It's messy. It's weird. It's Dave running into himself 100 times before being reborn as the Star Baby. That's how I see it.
I was curious as to why they found the monolith twice. That was what was tripping me up, because they found it on the moon, and then it was like, okay, now we're going to Jupiter. And I was like, wait, what? And they explained that it's sending the signal to Jupiter, but that wasn't what happened with the apes. And so...
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's multiple monoliths is how I've always interpreted it.
What, there's all over the world, there's a bunch of them?
The world, different worlds, all supposedly... I'm taking it as the monoliths are breadcrumbs to the next step in human evolution. Humanity is going on its own. They're making technology, and the technology is forming humans.
Right.
Which forms more, it's cyclical. But what they're trying to do is to lead humanity further out so humanity gets to the next level, which is what Dave finally achieves.
But what is that next level?
I don't know. I mean, that's what's represented in the Space Baby is the new dawn of humanity, the birth of a new humanity. Dave dies. Dave is reborn. Humanity in this form dies. Humanity takes the next big leap into whatever. I'm also going to draw another Futurama parallel here. The time machine that only goes forward, that the professor makes, and it keeps running into... It's almost like positing that the universe is an eventuality. It keeps running through cycles of Earth and
it just goes on
and time keeps repeating itself. And like I don't know that is what it was intended here, but it reminded me of that. Like when he's going through the light show and we're watching Earth form again.
We're on to you, Stanley Kubrick. You stole from Futurama.
from a past Earth.
Yes. Well, the monolith told him what to
that's
make.
True. Oh, weird. Okay, that's my interpretation of it. We can shake out on the details and stuff all you want to, because that's all up for grabs.
It's the details that I don't like, though. I like that idea. That's a great idea, but the baby looked ridiculous. The last shot of the movie,
I love it.
It was horrible.
It's horrifying.
It's ridiculous. Like, it didn't even look like a baby.
It looked like a fetus.
I don't know.
What'd you want him to do? Like, hand out cigars? You want the monolith to show up and be like, it's a boy! Hey, have a cigar.
I don't know, but when the apes discovered technology, it wasn't weird like that.
No.
And I get that we already know what happened there, and we don't know what the next step is, but it just felt weird. It was a big tonal shift, and also it confused me, and so I inherently don't like it.
It's fine. It's fine. You can like different element. Like we said, the visuals of it is great.
Right.
This is not a movie that's going to have an ABC plot. Like A leads to B, leads to C. This is the logical conclusion we come to. This goes A to B to C. Start over. A to B to C. Now we start over. Dave and Frank on the ship. A to B to Z. Like it completely, that's the leap.
Okay.
Now, that's just the movie that Kubrick made. For him to just get out there and find, I don't know, a monolith and have a conversation with it. And the monolith says, come this way. We've been waiting for you, Dave. Here, we're going to show you, the technology you have to take back to your people. No, this goes through like I'm going to call it a symbolic birthing. Like this is sort of Dave being reborn, I think is part of what that light show is all about. The Earth being reborn, humanity being reborn. Is it pretentious? Probably. Am I reaching? Probably. Like, this is what I'm getting from it there. There is so much stuff about birth. The spaceship looks like a big dick and balls. All the hatches on the spaceships look like vaginas. Everything looks like genitalia. The little pods that come out so they can maintain the spaceship.
Right.
They're sperm.
Yes.
During the light show, there's shapes that look like sperm, like a big ball with a tail flying. Everything is about recreating, rebirthing, recreating humanity is how I interpreted all of that stuff. I don't know how spot on I am or how off the mark I am. I'm going to say that 1,000 times during this episode because I'm trying to not come off like, oh, I get this movie.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're an idiot. I'm telling you what I saw and what my interpretation of it is because it's the one that makes sense to me and will help me go to sleep tonight and not be up at 3 a.m. going, I wonder how Hal went crazy. Right. It just, it's
the fact that it's so open-ended is what's bugging me. Like,
but can you not enjoy something that's open-ended though?
I can enjoy it, but it's just so new to me. Like, whenever I first find something out, I get a little off-put. Just because I'm like, oh, that's new information. I didn't know that.
Right.
Like, so this is just, my initial reaction is, I don't like it. I love the movie, I'm going to watch it again.
It's a different style of movie than you're probably used to seeing.
Which is weird because the fact that this was made 50 years ago and no one's made another similar movie.
There is a sequel to this.
Really?
2010. I've never seen it. I I have heard that is a more conventional movie.
Is it also made by the same people?
I don't think so.
Oh, well, that's just dumb. We will not be reviewing that.
I think it was more about, like, well, let's try and maybe, I don't know if it was a studio trying to put an ending on this movie or if it was just a cash grab. I don't know if it's a legitimately good movie that's just, in this same vein. I never saw it. I don't know about it.
Interesting.
But yeah, the open, I mean, we've all seen art that is vague of any medium that is vague and the artist just goes, well, it's up to the viewer and it's really just laziness being passed out. You know what I mean? I don't think this is it. I think this has more intention than that.
There was definitely an intention. I just wish it were a little more clear.
And I think that's a totally fair argument for this.
I also will have fun rewatching this and putting the pieces together. So
sure.
There's something to say about that.
I think you can show this movie to a lot of people, and a lot of people, especially younger audience members like your age, they're going to be a lot harsher on it than you're being. I think you're being far more open-minded. I don't think you're beating this movie up. I've been kind of like, I made a tweet earlier that I think Austin's not talking to me because I made him watch 2001. Like, I don't really think you're being like curmudgeonly about it. I think you're being super open-minded about it. I think a lot of younger audiences just don't even have the patience for a movie that is paced this slow anymore. Like, movies have gotten to be so fast.
Right.
And
well, this movie has an intermission. That's how
this
long
movie
it
does
is.
have an intermission.
And maybe we should have used that.
And this is, I mean, it's only a 2.5 hour movie. And I think there are like 3-hour movies now, like Avengers is like a 3-hour explosion, essentially.
But it's all fast paced.
It's all fast paced, and it's moving action set piece to action set piece. This is a very slow, methodical movie.
It's an odyssey.
It is an odyssey. I mean, in the truest sense of the word, this takes place over millions of years.
Right.
Like it is.
They're traveling literally, and they're also emotionally traveling.
Right. And it's not just the characters in the movie. This is about the destination of humanity as a whole. Like, this is about the journey that humanity has been. Dawn of Man is the very first sequence of the movie.
Yeah.
It is literally called the Dawn of Man. Here's these cavemen who existed before this, but we are seeing the birth of humanity being embedded in these creatures.
If I'm being honest, first off, when the Dawn of Man started, I was like, what? This is a space. I was promised spaceships.
Wait.
But I would have honestly watched an entire movie of just that.
Same. It's
no
great.
dialogue, whatever. Or maybe like they learn their first words, whatever. But that would have been a great movie.
It's a great sequence, man. It really is. Like, it's fascinating. It plays a little like a nature documentary.
And if I'm wrong about this, it's going to be a little sad. But didn't Kubrick also direct Planet of the Apes?
No.
Okay. Because I was thinking there are similarities there.
There's a lot of similarities to Planet of the Apes. Just in the tone of this and in the setting of that sequence. Like, it looks very much like the original Planet of the Apes.
And kind of symbolically, because they're evolving.
Yeah. No, that's true. And it's from the same time period. They're both from, this was 1968. I don't know when the original Planet of the Apes was, but it was right around this same time period.
Okay.
So, no, that's spot on. I mean, really, like, that's an easy mistake to make. If you put those two movies next to each other, you would go, the same person make this?
That's what I was thinking.
No, it's...
What else has Kubrick done then?
Well, Kubrick was really prolific in in film. He made a Vietnam movie. He's done all kinds of different genres. He made a Vietnam movie called Full Metal Jacket.
I've heard of it.
Which is pretty intense. He's done my favorite horror movie of all time, The Shining.
I have seen that.
We are about another month. We got Halloween movies coming.
Oh boy.
And we are going to tie back to this at that time too. And well, we'll hit on it in a little bit here.
Okay.
Yeah, Kubrick made a movie before he died. Is that Tom Cruise movie, Eyes Wide Shut? He made a movie. He died during the making of AI, and Steven Spielberg finished it up, which is very strange because those are two very different
They
directors.
just brought in, another famous guy.
He did a movie called A Clockwork Orange.
Heard of it.
About anarchists. He's done a lot of stuff that I'm sure you have heard of, and some things that you have probably seen. He's well regarded as a very high art director. Is
okay.
Very, very genius. Very technically great filmmaker.
Just from this movie, I can tell that
a lot of his stuff is very. It makes you uneasy. You know what I mean? It's not an easy watch. It's hard to watch a man go crazy in a hotel and try to murder his family. You know what I mean? It's stuff that's a little squeamish, and he does not mind taking you there and making you, it's sort of like, this is life. Life is not easy. Life is, and this is what art is. Art should challenge you. I think that was a lot of, I don't know, I haven't read or know a ton about Kubrick, but I really do feel like he made things he wanted to challenge people with.
Okay. That was just a quick history lesson for my benefit, because I don't know a whole lot about directors.
There are a lot of people who can give you a lot better history on Kubrick, but if you are interested, I do suggest seeking it out and seeking out more of his movies. The little bit of his work that I've seen is interesting.
Has he done any more sci-fi?
Well, AI is a sci-fi movie. A Clockwork Orange, I think, gets lumped into science fiction because it is it takes place in the future, like a dystopian future.
All right.
I would have to look at his whole filmography to know. But I think his biggest or his most seen science fiction movie is the fake moon landing.
Of course.
That, he made everybody think that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon.
One of my favorite actors. He really committed to the role.
Him and Buzz Aldrin really did not get the credit he deserved for that. But,
yeah. He's still defending it to this day.
While we were watching this and they were shooting the moon or showing us the moon, you asked me straight up, is this why they think he faked the moon landing?
Yeah, because I've heard that theory a bunch of times
and
before.
I think this kicked off the fake moon landing. Stanley Kubrick was involved. There's a lot of...
It's a little absurd because this looks nothing like the moon landing.
No, but the moon does look like the moon.
I disagree.
Really?
Yeah, the lighting's off. That's one of the main reasons. The easiest way to debunk the moon landing is fake argument is that if you look at the moon landing, the lighting, you can see the sunlight. It's basically like an entire sheet of light, for a better term. And in this movie, it's not the same. It's almost as if it looks like night on Earth.
Okay, but in this movie, that was an artistic choice.
Yes, I get that.
Going by the terrain of the moon, considering that we had not been there, it's not far off.
It looks accurate.
This is pre us going to the moon. So
I could nitpick this movie for the tiny things that it gets wrong, but overall,
but you could also argue that those are artistic choices he made for this movie, and that if he was going to fake the moon landing, those would not be artistic choices. He would technically do it correct. He would have a technical advisor to say this is how the light should be, and he could
Are you trying to tell me you don't think we've been to the moon?
I do believe we've been to the moon. I'm devil's advocating the theory that says Kubrick directed the moon landing because we didn't really go there. That he did it on a soundstage.
All right.
Okay. So, like, to say that, no, he couldn't have done it because in this movie the lighting isn't right. I'm saying, like, well, no, in this movie, which is blatantly a work of fiction, he's making an artistic choice about light. If he was actually making something to fake the moon landing, he would do it correctly.
Sure.
But to tie this to The Shining is the other thing that adds fuel to that fire.
How?
That there is all of this... there's a documentary called Room 237 that is all about this conspiracy theory that Kubrick faked the moon landing, and that The Shining is basically his confession of that he's putting all these symbols in The Shining that are him dropping hints that he faked the moon landing. I could not tell you.
That's so absurd.
But the documentary that explains it and does it with a straight face is so great.
Oh my God.
It's so great because it is so batshit. It is so crazy and it is so far out there and it is reaching so far. It's sort of like the last gasp of when conspiracy theory was fun. It was fun to watch the tinfoil hats because they weren't hurting anybody. They were just throwing crackpot theories around.
I can only imagine how many people who have seen that movie now,
for sure,
wholeheartedly believe it.
These were not politically motivated conspiracy theories. These weren't anti-vaxxers. These weren't anti-maskers. These weren't these aren't what conspiracies are now.
Yes.
These were just groups of people who got a hold of an idea and became convinced it was real and tried to convince other people that it was real. And it was when conspiracy theory was really fun in terms of things like this. There was always also the people who were like, the Holocaust is fake and Jews rule the world.
Awful people.
Terrible, terrible racist. I mean, that's always been an element of it. But as far as this realm of conspiracy theory, which is just about the fake moon landing. It's Kubrick did that. And then he admitted to it in his biggest block,
of course,
his most mainstream movie. And it's just sort of it's fun. It's a fun movie to watch because it's so insane. And it also does point out a lot of symbolic stuff that Kubrick did, which is just cool.
Right. I do think that's a fun theory. That's kind of why I like UFO sighting people.
Sure.
They're equally absurd.
But I don't think they're equally absurd in the same way. I like UFO stuff.
That's a little more plausible because there's not a whole lot of evidence. It's this happened to one person as opposed to he faked a moon landing to convince the entire world.
Right.
It's a different scale.
It was a Cold War flex on Russia that we had to do. So they hired the best filmmaker to you know what I mean? And the fun part about that conspiracy theory is a lot of stuff does sort of fit. And it's sort of okay, it's a plausible theory. I don't believe it, but it fits, and that's what makes it fun. And it is just sort of of course we went to the moon. We we went back to the moon several times.
Yeah.
You
mean they made sequels?
They made sequels till they weren't performing on TV as well. So then they stopped it. But no, it's really more fun. The UFO stuff is more I enjoy that on the same level that I enjoy cryptids and Bigfoot and skunk apes and stuff like that. I like to think of things that are possible.
Right.
You know what I mean? I like to think that a UFO coming to Earth is possible. It's about there being wonder in the world that we don't know about. And
that's exactly it.
I love that so much.
I also wanted to talk about I guess this is obvious because it was made in the 60s, but there's a very clear 60s aesthetic to the space travel.
Oh, you mean the Pan Am?
Pan Am?
Isn't it a Pan Am space plane that's taking him up there?
Yeah, the space plane is absurd.
It's not absurd.
Not totally absurd, but...
The space plane was the basis for the shuttle program.
What do you mean?
This was pre-space shuttle.
Right.
And this was...
But the shape of this plane, like, it didn't look accurate to me.
I'm talking about the plane where the guy went to the moon.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, that's a design that was a basis for a space shuttle design.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh.
I
did not know that.
The space shuttle program was being talked about, the idea of a reusable space plane.
Right.
And this predates that. And
I can see how it looks similar to a space shuttle.
Similar, sure. But it's not... Yeah,
okay.
No, I'm not saying it's...
I just thought this was something they made up and they were like...
It is something they made up, but this is one of those cases where something from science fiction sort of bleeds into reality. It is sort of like an idea. I mean, the idea of a space plane, of a reusable spaceship, was not new to this movie, to this story.
Yes.
But like this design of it, what I think did heavily influence the actual design of the space shuttle.
That is kind of cool.
I think it's super cool.
Also, the sticky shoes, like
the Velcro shoes, yeah.
Yeah, that's like, I could kind of see that for the shuttle, but like using that in a spaceship, like when you could just float around, like it looks more like a workaround for the movie because they can't
because they couldn't do the weightless thing
right.
all the time. Sure. Yeah, I think it was a lot of world building stuff to just say, oh, this is how we would work this stuff if we were going to the moon on a regular basis,
yeah.
and things like that. But then in the when he was on the space station before he got to the moon, and then Dave and Frank on the Jupiter mission had the
spinning,
the centrifugal force that gave them gravity.
Right.
Like
that's a real thing.
It is a real thing. It's in The Martian. And the ship on The Martian does the same thing. And I remember when I saw The Martian, I'm like, oh shit, it's the 2001 ship. They're doing it. And because I always remember him running that lap
yes.
around there.
I will say, and this is a small nitpick from a scientist, but I will say that it has to be a certain size for the centrifugal force to represent gravity. Like, the first ship, when he had the layover in space before the moon, that was accurate. But the ship they were on with Hal, it was a little too small. He would be on the floor, basically. Like, he wouldn't be able to... He'd be crawling.
Yeah. Like, it would be too... Well, doesn't it depend on how fast it spins?
Yeah, if it were able to simulate our gravity, he wouldn't be able to stand. Because, like, his feet would be at our gravity, but then his head would be at a different gravity because of it's round.
All right. Well.
But small nitpicks.
Well, there's something I don't care about.
Yeah.
Actually, the gravity of his head would be...
You're the one wearing glasses here, Dad. I don't even want to hear it.
No, I get it.
I find that stuff interesting. I get that that's a small nitpick.
I am going to call it a nitpick.
I'm not holding it against the movie. I just think it's a fun discrepancy.
Look, man, this movie was made. We were going to space. We were not going to deep space. And none of that stuff was real yet.
Exactly.
And I think to just work on the theory that this is theoretically possible and that they were able to not only work that into the movie, but portray it in a way that sold it as well as it did.
Right. It looked commercialized.
It looked great. It looked so... I mean, this is 68. We keep coming back to this.
Yeah.
This is sold theoretical science and made it look like it was a commonplace thing. It didn't look cheesy. It didn't look bad. I'm constantly blown away.
It looks better than some modern day sci-fi.
For sure.
Which that could be because of the budget. I imagine since he's such a famous director, he got a crazy amount of money.
Not a budget, but he did go way over it, and he went way over time. The studio fought with him on this movie. There's a lot of documentaries. I bought this movie, and it comes with a bunch of extras. I am going to watch probably at some point this week.
The commentary?
Not the commentary's on there. I'm going to, probably the next time I watch this movie, I'll watch it with a commentary on. But there's it looks like there's a bunch of like short features and short docs and stuff on there.
Sure.
So I'm going to check a bunch of that stuff out because I know there's been like small documentaries made about the making of this movie, and that I think Kubrick, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he basically like locked the studio out of off the set.
Oh my god!
And they were trying to get the movie from him because he was way over time. He was way over budget. Like, this was such an ambitious movie.
Well, I'm glad that he did do that.
And it is one of those things where you hear about people who are terrible to work with. You know, very difficult. They're such difficult people, but it's like some of them, like, just let them have their way.
That's how
they're
you
going
get the
to
art.
get something great. And I think Kubrick really did a lot of stuff that, you know, unpopular as it may have been at the time. It's great. You know, Stephen King famously hates The Shining.
Right.
But I think it's such a great movie,
well, that's
regardless.
That's him. He wrote the source material.
Sure.
So, of course,
And
it's a different vision of his work.
It's not a great adaptation of the book, but it is taking the story and putting it in movie form in a very interesting way. You know what I mean?
Which
like,
I find interesting because I've heard that the reason it's so different is because the Shining book has a lot of weird, wacky stuff happen in it.
Yeah.
But, like, he does that in this movie, so why didn't he do that in The Shining?
Because it's different from showing a light show or showing things in space that are fantastic than showing a giant shrub that is trimmed to look like an elephant coming to life. And, you know, something on Earth that is in 1979 or 80 when he shot that movie.
Right.
You know, like...
It would have the, what's it called?
Like the Uncanny Valley kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, or it would just look cheesy. Or it's just something... I mean, there's a point in that book where the fire hose in the hotel uncoils itself and follows Danny down the hall like a snake. Like, that's just gonna look silly in a movie. It's
that's
a great.
Not gonna look scary.
It's a creepy thing in the book the way it's written, but to just show it, you gotta go weird with it. You gotta go crazy to I think get the same effect. I mean, it's just those are a couple examples. We're gonna do The Shining in a month. We'll talk about it then.
Right.
But like, no, this is Kubrick. I think just does what he wants to. If I heard that he went over budget and over time on every movie he ever worked on, I probably wouldn't be that surprised, but he's, you know, regarded as one of the great filmmakers.
I honestly, the only part of this movie that kind of gives away that it was made in the time period it was made in is the audio of the actors. Like, there's a clear difference from, like, the visual effects and even the soundtrack, and then you hear, like, the flight attendant speaking or something.
A lot of
like,
ADR stuff, yeah.
And then even Hal sounds way better than Dave did.
Yeah, I think, well, because Hal was supposed to be a recorded voice, too. Like, you...
Oh, so that was on purpose, you think?
Well, I think you just, in your mind, you know, like, it's not the same as watching a voice come out of somebody's mouth and it not quite matching or fading in and out the way, or, you know, this is just a recorded voice from a single source, and we know this because Hal is a machine, you know?
Right.
By the way, did you catch all...
That he's a machine? Yes.
No. Well, wow, good job.
I know.
The red light. Did you put any parodies of Hal
Oh, I've already known that. I mean
the Wall-E
I've seen
thing.
yeah.
Like,
and then also like the opening of this movie with the bum ba 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 ba.
Yeah.
Like Simpsons has done that. And
for sure. Yeah.
I've seen it parodied a bunch of times.
I want to say there's a Sesame Street parody of the monolith.
I wouldn't doubt it.
An animated, like Jim Henson animated thing. I'm gonna have to look that up. But yeah, I mean,
a red light on a robot is very ominous.
Sure.
So that's bound to be repeated.
Again,
anyway.
color coding, things like that. You know what I mean? Like the middle of Hal's brain is red, his eye is red, the red spacesuit. I feel like him going into the red room to unplug Hal is sort of like going into hell. It's all very bright, ominous. You know, the red glow, all of that stuff. Yeah, for sure. It all is the color coding in this movie. It falls right in line with that.
You know, I'm going to draw an interesting comparison here, and I hope you agree, because we've both seen this, but I kept coming back to Ad Astra when watching this.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially with the God and
going deep into space to find God.
Right.
Yes. It's almost, I don't want to say exactly the same movie, but it is very much of the same DNA.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great comparison. I kept making it at points through this movie as well. Like, oh, Ad Astra really cribbed from this movie. And I don't want to even say that as a knock, because I love Ad Astra.
Both these movies are great.
Ad Astra just has more of a solid ending than this. Like, it
still does a bit of surrealism.
For sure.
With like the planet pictures and all that.
Yep.
But it's a more grounded thing.
It's a more solid ending.
Yes.
This isn't about remaking humanity. This is a man remaking himself. This is an individual story versus 2001, which is a story about humanity. Or human nature.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Ultimately, we see Dave go forward. But really, Dave is representative of all of humanity.
He's just the first person to take that step.
Right. Whereas Brad Pitt's, just like the first caveman to pick up the bone was the first, he led the rest. Whereas Brad Pitt, it's more of his personal redemption. His personal God. His father is his God that he has to go and face, as opposed to going to face God. Right. No, that's a great comparison. I think it's leading me to the conclusion that I love space movies about finding God.
It's a small genre, but
these and Star Trek V. So I guess I don't like the entire genre of finding God in space.
Okay. But, diss on Star Trek.
I'm also going to diss on Star Trek the motion picture, because I feel like they tried to crib from this movie as well.
Well, I kind of wanted to watch that soon, so...
Oh, really?
Deal with it.
Man, really?
I've heard it's boring, but I've heard it's pretty. I'm down for pretty space movies.
It is very good looking visually. They try to do a lot of the same things this movie does. They do the fly-arounds. They do all this. They do it so much worse. It is so self-indulgent in Star Trek.
Oh, boy.
Where they're just they do it around the Enterprise when they first get to the Enterprise.
Okay.
And it's really done in this, check it out, it's the Enterprise.
Well, I mean, it is also part of a franchise. You kind of have to.
That's exactly right. And that was the revival of the franchise. And they were trying to get people excited. Look, we're bringing Star Trek back.
Right.
Like, there would be no Star Trek franchise if they had not made that specific movie. But they were really... I feel like they were trying to do a lot of these things and tackle even some of these themes that 2001 is doing. And it just does not work. They try to do the pacing.
It does not work as well. Or does it just not work?
Star Trek the motion picture is not for me. It's not a terrible movie. It's just a very boring movie. It's faster paced than 2001, but it's so much more boring. It's so much more empty. It really was like we're getting the band back together. Come hang out with us. Star Trek 2 and 3 are much more commercial action movies, and they're so much better than the motion picture.
All right.
No, I'll watch it with you. We'll talk about it if you want, man. But it's this movie. If this movie was watered down and turned into a marketable franchise, is kind of how I feel about it.
Okay. I mean, I don't think that's inherently bad.
It's not inherently. Right.
Very clearly, this is a better movie. But
there's far worse movies, and there's far worse Star Trek movies, honestly.
They made a bunch of them.
That's what I'm saying. They ran out of gas way before they stopped making movies. But, and
then when they started making movies again, and then ran out of gas again.
And they brought the TV show back. But, I don't know. What else? We can talk about Hal. We haven't really talked about Hal that much. We're already over on time. I don't care.
Right. If you're this far in, you're committed.
Yeah. Pause it and come back to us if we've worn you out.
We should have put an intermission.
Let's take a break.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Let's take a break. Let's take another break and we'll come back.
All right. Let's do it.
Okay, we're back. Second
Welcome
break.
back.
Second break this time.
It's crazy.
Did you do anything fun on this one?
No.
No enlightenment? No nothing?
No. I mean, it was just kind of a watered down version of enlightenment.
Speaking of water, my water broke. I gave birth to a space baby.
Seriously.
Next version of humanity is already here.
Does it look like you?
He's got my eyes, but
yeah, so do I, so not really.
I'm glad neither of you got my nose. So it's really got he's got my hairline.
Okay.
So, it's all I'm proud of him.
Ups and downs.
Yeah, he's already not interested in my podcast. He has transcended humanity on every level. I'm really proud of him.
All right.
His name's Dave. This is we took an extra break. We're going extra long on this. This is a big, big movie.
This movie deserves it.
So we've got a lot to unpack. Let's talk about Hal, because Hal is the most iconic thing about this movie.
Which is weird. Like, I knew about Hal going in, but honestly, he's not the most interesting part of this movie.
But you know what he is? He is the most classic sci-fi part of this movie.
That's true.
I think everybody knows Hal because he is, if you were to explain this movie to somebody, and it's even in the movie summary when I bought the movie, it's described as a robot goes crazy on a deep space mission.
Which is what I thought this movie was, and it ended up not being.
It is the most basic part of this movie. It is the most easiest part to explain to somebody. So I think that's why Hal gets all the press. If you go to somebody and they go, "What's 2001 about?" and you go, "Well, it's about the evolution of humanity and how technology has both helped and hindered us, and as we move towards finding God." People are like, "What? Well, what's it? Who's in it?" It becomes But if you go, it's about a crazy spaceship robot that tries to kill its crew. That's something someone. It's a solid concept to sell to somebody.
Right. It's a good elevator pitch.
Yeah. Perfect.
So about Hal, I liked him.
Really?
I felt bad when he died.
It is a little sad.
It's upsetting. I expected a little more emotion. Like, he was just like, please don't.
Right.
But
Dave,
it was still very sad.
Why don't you sit down and have a pill? Have a relaxation pill.
He's trying to roofie Dave.
Hey, I made you a drink, Dave. It's like the house on The Simpsons.
Oh yeah. It's trying to sleep with Marge, so it kills Homer.
I drew you a bath, Marge. I drew you a bath, Dave. Why don't you...
How many animated cartoons are we going to compare to this show?
Well,
movie.
This is what I was trying to get at earlier, was like, how many parodies of this have you seen before you actually saw the movie? And
right.
It's one of those movies that's so old and so iconic, this movie's older than I am. I saw parodies of this movie before I actually saw the movie. And it's one of those where it's like, you got to hand it to this movie for still having an impact, even though you know the spoiler.
Yes.
The parody already. But Hal, Hal is an emotionless killing machine. But you're right. You hear him sort of panicked, but still in that monotone.
Yeah.
And I think you even see it on Dave's face when he starts to unplug, when he starts to shut his brain down.
Bad.
You see him go from being angry at Hal to listening to Hal say, "No, Dave, please stop, Dave. Dave, I can feel it shutting,"
right.
You're listening to somebody describe their own death to you. And it's a machine, but you still feel it.
They say it in this movie when he's being interviewed on TV,
right,
that you can't distinguish from a machine and a person.
Right. They talk about he emulates these qualities, and then they're like, well, some people would say he mimics them. But it is sort of like, this is a debate about AI before anybody was talking about, we talk about AI all the time now because
it's more of a reality now.
It's becoming a reality, and people are starting to go, ooh, we should have had this conversation a long time ago. Well, here's 1968. Here's a piece of AI.
You guys weren't listening.
That is, people are having this debate within this movie. I mean, off screen, but does Hal really feel things, or does he just mimic things? And that's always a very interesting thing. It's the thing that drew me into Westworld. It's the thing that's drawn me into a lot of sci-fi, is like, what's real? What's a learned behavior? What is a programmed behavior?
I think that's such a common theme in sci-fi, because science fiction is used to analyze humans through a different viewpoint. Sure. So AI and aliens are the main way we do that. That's the main way that we show us ourselves in a different light.
And show how we treat things that we objectify.
Right.
Here's an artificially intelligent machine. Maybe it's alive, but as long as it looks like a machine, we can just objectify that thing.
That's kind of why so many aliens and robots in sci-fi are colonizers or brutal murderers. They're just us reflecting the worst parts of ourselves. When really, aliens could be so far they could be Dave at the end of this movie, all enlightened and kind to us.
Well, that's a really optimistic viewpoint of that.
I try to have the glass half full.
A lot of, even Stephen Hawking said, if we ever have contact with aliens, it's probably not going to be well. They're probably going to be far more advanced than we are.
Right.
And you know how we treat things that are not as advanced as us.
But again, that's comparing them to us.
That is comparing them to us.
And I think that's narrow-minded. We only have one data set that we're looking at.
All right, you let me handle the philosophy. You keep on the science.
No,
I get it, but that it is a philosophical question. Is our behavior inherent to us, or is it inherent to life, intelligent life everywhere? Is this baggage that comes with self-awareness? We see it here when the cavemen become self-aware, they become warlike. Right. They become warlords. They develop technology so that they can kill with it. First, so that they can eat, but then so that they can conquer.
Yes.
This is what comes with the tree of knowledge. This is what comes with consciousness and self-awareness, is the idea of what you can do now.
I want to know, because I'm still pondering this, what was driving Hal? Because he was very committed to this mission and had determined that the humans were going to mess it up. And he was also talking about the rumors of the monolith, and he said that he was worried about the mission. He was reflecting these fears onto them, and that he was almost obsessive over the monolith.
I wonder if Hal understood on some level that he was what would keep them from, that they would realize that at a certain point they had to shut Hal down one way or the other, that they had to jettison Hal, that the technology there. I think what this movie gets to at the end of the day is that the technology that drove humanity, they can go no further. They've become too dependent on it.
Okay.
And that if they are to go any further, they need to leave it behind. And I think Hal understood that. I'm guessing here because I've not given this the thought that you have. I'm just wondering if Hal understood that he was going to be shut down or left behind, and that was the only way that the mission was going to be successful.
Right. I think that's a good interpretation. I saw it more as Hal was being greedy and wanted it for himself.
He wanted the monolith for himself?
Yeah, he wanted to take that next step so that he was equal to humans.
That's even better, I think. I think the idea that technology becomes the humanity.
Right.
That
he saw the potential there.
That the monolith can take somebody forward. Well, if Hal has consciousness, and if he gets real conscious, maybe it's a Pinocchio story. Like, he becomes a real boy.
I didn't see Hal smoking cigars and drinking in this.
He gets swallowed by the whale. But maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's Hal wondering, ooh, maybe I want a piece of this. And maybe that's really interesting. I like that we're working it out right here.
Right, we're building, throwing it off each other.
Sure, and I think that's what you have to do. That's why I'm so glad to do this show with you. That a movie like this that is so full of ambiguity and is so vague at the end, I come here with a notebook full of notes of what I've gotten from it. You bring your thoughts on it.
I mean, I have written down notes in my phone, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have I'm saying thoughts either way.
Okay, yes.
I'm not trying to downplay that.
I was like,
I have a notebook.
I'm lesser prepared, but I still have.
No. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Everybody brings their thoughts to the table, and I'm saying as far as like my notes, I think I've got it figured out because I take all these notes. But the reality is, in a movie like this, nobody's got it figured out.
Right.
And if we can, this movie breeds conversation. And I love to do this show with you because in a movie like this, we can sit down and we can talk about this. We can talk about the themes of Ex Machina. And you bring yours and I bring mine. And both of us become, I think, better informed by talking about this movie. I
love sci-fi for that reason. I think it's one of the best genres to do that.
Yeah, I think any movie can be thematic. But science fiction is inherently about humanity,
right,
and about philosophical questions, I think, and those are great kinds of films to sit here and go, what'd you get out of it? Here's what I got out of it.
Yeah,
here's what this symbol means. Here's what that symbol means. And I think, the fact that we're sitting here for an hour and a half and we're still sort of figuring out things about it kind of tells me we could be here all night and break this movie down and pull the movie up and start breaking down scenes as we watch them.
We're making this episode as long as the movie at this point.
I mean, we've taken intermissions, we've done all kinds of things, but no, these are really interesting things about Hal that I hadn't considered. I was more focused on like the foreshadow, like there's an element where Frank is playing chess against Hal. And Hal beats him because Hal predicts his moves like 4 moves ahead.
Right, and then he's reading the lips, and that's kind of like the
right.
same.
It's a foreshadowing. This is what I'm picking at. This very surface level things about Hal, like, oh yeah, that show. I knew he was going to kill Frank.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, there it is, right there. He's foreshadowing it. And also, Frank is also kind of a dick, who's like, lay my bed down flat, Hal. He just he doesn't treat Hal like a person, and I feel like Dave maybe does a little bit more.
I mean, you see Dave showing him like drawings and giving him conversation.
And Hal's like, can I ask you a personal question, Dave? And he's like, sure. Like he's
our buddies.
He's a little friendlier, but then with like the antenna that they have to fix.
Right.
Like at that point everything turns. And
but even then you can see when they're in the pod and they're discussing turning him off, he's hesitant. He says something like, we have many options, we'll have to see. And the other guy's like, there's only one option, man. We have to turn it off.
Right. Well, I think he's also talking about like, well, if we shut Hal off, we have to compensate for everything he does. We have to coordinate all these other things, and that's going to be a lot of work. And Frank's like, well, yeah, it is, but the alternative is a crazy computer is running things. And it's just, it's sort of, it is sort of ominous. And you see, I don't feel like, that's the thing watching like Dave and Frank, they don't seem like friends to me. They seem like coworkers. They seem cordial enough, but they don't seem like they're close. You know what I mean?
Not at all.
And Dave does seem a little closer to Hal, and maybe that's why he turns a little sad when he's shutting him off. And maybe that's why he's so angry. Because he did feel some affection towards Hal, and Hal turned on him.
He's betrayed.
Right. It's not just that Hal tried to kill him. It's that Hal he saw as a friend, as a coworker, as a person. And maybe that's tying in with the reliance on technology. He's not only just a tool for his advancement, this is Dave's friend.
Sure.
And maybe that's a reach, but it all ties into how look at us.
I don't think you can reach with this movie. I think
you think this movie is reaching, and we're just reaching back trying to get a hold of it.
Right. I'm also interested in the Hal that was back on Earth. They said there was a twin computer, and when they were running simulations, there was no problem with the dish, so they thought the problem was with Hal. And I was interested because they were like, oh, that's proof. But my first thought was, well, Hal's in a different situation. He's in space. He's not the factory setting of this computer. He's learned and grown, and his circumstances have changed what he is.
But isn't that the point of AI?
What do you mean?
Well, that there are no twin computers. That everything is individual.
So how can you make this comparison that...
Well, that's the point, is that we realize that, and the film realizes that, but these characters don't realize that. They say they're still treating it as a machine and not realizing that they've given the machine too much power, and that's actually going to hold them back. That these machines aren't identical anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a very interesting kind of way to look at reliance on machines and reliance on what we view as having personality. And when you turn that and you look at people's reliance on here comes old man Rood. You look at people's reliance on social media, on Facebook. I know people who don't feel like they need to socialize in person because they have a realm of internet friends. I have a ton of friends I have some great friends on the internet that I talk to constantly.
Right.
But if I had the chance to hang out with these people in real life, I would take that over the internet any day of the week.
It's a tool.
It is a tool for
substitute.
connection. Exactly. Very well put. It is a tool to reach out and talk to somebody. It is a tool to meet people who are not geographically close to you. It is not a substitution for living a life in a real space.
Right. Also, I just noticed something. Maybe I'm reaching here, but so the ape with the tool, he kills the other ape, right?
Right.
And in this movie, Dave has to kill Hal before he reaches the Enlightenment.
Yeah.
So that's I just noticed that mirroring, like.
Well, the ape that killed the ape had already been enlightened.
That's true, but
but it was sort of, I guess it is sort of mirroring. Like, here's enlightenment. This is visual. Okay, it goes enlightenment, caveman with a weapon. Far end of the spectrum, Dave with technology, Dave enlightenment. So enlightenment is on the outside.
Right, and then murder is on the inside.
Murder with a tool or with a technology. It's not an exact mirror, but yes, it is bookending. Enlightenment is bookending the film.
Okay.
So yeah, and murder is right on the inside of those bookends. So
interesting.
Murder and enlightenment.
Huh.
Do they have to go together? I say no.
Probably not.
Point, counterpoint. Like I said, we could do this all day.
Music?
Music we kind of touched on with the Fantasia stuff.
Right. I did want to point out, this movie opens on a blank screen with just like 2 minutes of music.
Yep.
And I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
The monolith, it's like the monolith choir. Yeah.
Right. It was just, I was engaged with this movie before I saw the opening shot.
I am glad to hear you say that, because while that was playing, I was waiting for you to be like, what the hell? I was waiting for you to be mad at it.
I started like smirking, like I was laughing a bit at it, because I was expecting like the music kept going. I just expected like 10 seconds or something.
Well, it would start building, like and then you wait for the image to pop on the screen.
Yeah, the dramatic image, right. At the climax of the music. And then it fades out.
Yes. It is great. It is, use of music is very strategic in this. Like we said, the Fantasia, the dancing spaceships across space.
But the Fantasia stuff is all in the beginning.
Right.
Because when Hal's attacking and all that stuff, it's silent.
It's dead freaking silent.
There's like the silence of space, and then there's like the machinery.
Why do you think that is?
Humming. I don't know. I didn't think about the reason. I just thought tonally.
I think the music. Well, there's music of like that goes with the monolith.
Sure.
There's the triumphant
space
technology. You know, like these moments of enlightenment, these moments of big grandiose imagery. There's classical music playing as we watch the spaceships going to the moon. This is triumphant, celebratory music.
Right.
We're celebrating technology. Look at us going to the moon. It's a Pan Am flight to the moon, just like you would take a flight to New York or the West Coast. Now technology is turned on us. There's nothing celebratory about that. There's nothing mysterious about that. There is nothing triumphant about that. This is life and death hanging in the balance. They are just trying to survive. And the dead silence of that makes that scene so freaking tense.
It really adds to the suspension.
I love it. I love that you can only hear the air. You can only hear like the jets and you can only hear when Dave and Hal are talking in that little exchange of like, open the door, Hal, open the door, and it's just, yes, use of music or not using music is brilliant in this movie. Just for where he decides, it's all very specific and very intentional of whether or not he puts music in there.
And then the triumphant music is back once he hits enlightenment.
Right, when the space baby is born, and we see Earth, all coming together, that's triumph. We made it to the next level, which is being a big, ugly fucking fetus in the middle of space.
Yes.
But have you ever seen an ultrasound picture? They all do kind of look like that space baby.
They're a little horrifying.
Yeah, they're a little disgusting. Music. You got anything else?
I think that's kind of it.
That's it for now. Like I said, I do wanna hit this book up. I'm gonna finish this book up, and if you have time, I'd love to do a follow-up episode discussing the book, and maybe we'll get a new perspective from the book, I'm sure.
Well, you said they work in tandem with each other.
That's what I've always heard, yes.
They were written at the same time.
They were written at the same time. They kind of came up with the story together, and then Kubrick went off to write the movie, or to make the movie, and Clark went off to do the book.
Right. I think it's going to be interesting to compare the two. We might even, when we're finished reading it, watch the movie again and then be like...
That'd be cool, yeah. That'd be real cool.
The full experience will be there.
Yeah, I think so. So, if any of you have any theories, if you have any facts about this movie, if we've gotten anything wrong, if you agree with us on anything, please reach out. Let us know. Hit us on Twitter. You can DM us. I'm at Phil Rood. You are?
Austin.n.Rood.
On Twitter?
I think so.
Okay. It will be linked up either way.
Right.
You can hit me on my at philrood.com on the post for this. Whatever. Just let me know what you think.
We want to talk about it.
I would love to talk more about this movie and to get other feedback. And if I've gotten things wrong, which I'm sure I have, I would love to be corrected and hear your point of view on it.
Yeah. I think that'll be really fun.
That's going to close out our extra long discussion. You got a shout out this week?
I do. I'm realizing this week that a lot of my shout outs are TikTok creators.
It's whoever you want to shout out.
It's where I get most of my media, and there are a lot of great creators on TikTok. Like, it's so fun to see whatever you're interested in, you're going to find something. So today's shout out is human_espresso. Her real name is Kenna, and she's a film major. And I just love her takes. Like, she does a lot of sort of making fun of dude bro film majors, kind of like the pretentious ones. Sure. And then she also just has really cool takes on her favorite movies and the things she's learning in film school.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's Kenna at Human Espresso.
Human Espresso. That's on TikTok.
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool.
What about you?
I am going to shout out my buddy, Mr. J. Hammond C. Hammond Chamberlain has done a podcast called Beyond the Playlist for the last 6 or 7 years. It's a podcast about creativity. He interviews creative professionals, artists, writers, a lot of musicians, filmmakers, other podcasters, professional wrestlers, animators. I mean, if you can think of a creative pursuit, he has probably interviewed somebody who has done that.
That's quite a lineup.
I don't think Hammond has missed a week since he started doing that. I mean,
when did he start?
Like 6-7 years ago.
Wow.
I have been on there. Every year he does an artist roundtable. I've done every one of them. He's done 6 of those. So yeah, he must be He did that in his first year. So yeah, he's been going 6 years.
Artist Roundtable, is that drawing artists, or is that just art of all kind?
It's visual art.
Okay.
This year he had his first ever sculpted piece was submitted, but paintings, digital paintings, watercolor I'm on there, so it's just, my ink drawings, whatever.
Right.
And he gives topics and we break that down. Anyway, Hammond is bar none one of the nicest guys in podcasting. Very generous, very funny guy, great interviewer. I've known him for years, and he just really runs a consistently great show. He's a great podcast producer. He hosts a couple other shows. Check him out, jhammondc.com. I think you can get all his links from there and his main show, or just dial up Beyond the Playlist with J. Hammond C on your podcatcher of choice.
Sounds cool.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rood. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. It really helps our visibility and helps us grow the show.
Another way you can help us grow is to tell a friend. If you know any movie fans in your life, tell them about us, because chances are they'll like us. We hope.
We do hope so. I think we're likable guys.
I think so.
If they like 2001, they'll love this episode.
Exactly.
I have the wheel next week, and I am going to cast some light on a movie that I think more people should see. This is on Amazon Prime. It is a little independent science fiction movie. It is called The Vast of Night.
Vast of Night.
Yes. We're going to watch it. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It is a really interesting UFO movie. It takes place in the 50s.
Cool. You're right about it not being well known, because I haven't heard of that.
I just stumbled on it a couple of months ago.
Is it new?
It's fairly new. It's 2-3 months old.
Okay.
It came out this year, and it's a really interesting little UFO movie that I want to do it just because I want people to watch this movie. I want to champion this movie.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, Austin, social media that you want to shout out.
I'm at austin.n.rood at Instagram and TikTok.
All right, and I am philrood.com. That's my website, and you can get all my social media handles from there. And I'm posting links to episodes and the YouTube videos that go with them.
Cool stuff.
You want to read the credits?
Sure, we do everything here ourselves.
There you have it. We'll see you next time on The Picture Show.
See ya.
Goodbye.
Hal. Okay, now that word doesn't even sound real anymore.